What's up, guys? Today we are taking a look at the best science fiction novel that I have ever read by a long shot. It's the final piece of an intellectually creative and epic trilogy, Absolution Gap by Alastair Reynolds. Every once in a while, as a reader, if you're lucky, you'll read something that becomes a part of you. Something that takes over your consciousness. Something that rips you out of your seat and takes you into its realm. Something that your mind will continue to return to for years to come. Fortunately, that has happened to me with the Revelation Space series by Alastair Reynolds. Absolution Gap is composed of essentially three narratives that merge. The first thread concerns the survivors from Redemption Arc, whose story begins about 20 years after the conclusion of that novel in the year 2675. The refugees are on Ararat, a pattern juggler planet, and their temporary home. They await the return of other survivors who set out on a mission at the end of Redemption Arc to gain information to help defeat the Inhibitors, ancient killing machines bent on the curtailing of any significant advancement by an intelligent species. Clavane, the group's leader, has secluded himself from the group in perpetual gloom. Scorpio, a member of the short-lived genetically engineered pig race, reluctantly assumes the role of leader. Scorpio seeks out Clavane when a mysterious ship crash lands on Ararat. The second thread begins in space in the year 2615. Quaish is a gopher for a band of ultras. He has one last chance to score big and redeem himself. A trip to a distant planet promises hope in the form of an ancient and priceless alien artifact. But Quaish's mission does not go according to plan, and his fate is not what he or the reader might expect. The third thread concerns young Rashmika Els on the planet Hela in the year 2727. Rashmika is on a quest to find out what happened to her brother Harbin after he joined the planet's religious sun-worshipping group, who are fixated on the gas giant Haldora and who are forever hoping to catch a glimpse of the miracle that concerns it. I like the meticulous world building that Reynolds generates in this series of books. I never thought that anything would come even close to meaning as much to me as the Dark Tower series by Stephen King, but Revelation Space is up there. Reynolds creates a sophisticated world with nuanced characters and a complex plot that is a perfect recipe for space opera. It is mind-blowing, and I respect the author's intellect and imagination in being able to create something this grand. From themes of religion and philosophy, to war and perseverance, to friendship and betrayal and extinction, I think that this book and series are simply marvelous. I just can't say enough about how much thought the author must have put into the machines, the spaceships, consciousness, engineering, physics, and the Revelation Space universe as a whole. I like the way that the narrative threads come together. This is a common thing with Alastair Reynolds, and I like the fact that we get some new characters in Absolution Gap that were not in the first two installments. Quaish is a new character in this one, and I like what is happening with his religious faction on Hela. They are watching for the disappearance of Haldora, and living their lives in hopes of catching a vanishing of the gas giant, and it all seemed very human. Planet and star worship have been common throughout human history, and I like the way that Reynolds keeps this series human by taking some of the identifying factors that make us human and projecting them into his futuristic space opera world. I like what's happening on Ararat with Neville, Clavane, and company. They colonize the place, and it's a pattern juggler world. In my opinion, the pattern jugglers are one of the best ideas in this series. Rashmika, aka Aura, is another brilliant idea by the author. She's born of her mother, Corey, inside the Hades Matrix. The Hades Matrix is a matrix of knowledge from various different civilizations, and Aura absorbs that information and it becomes her. She's a product of the Hades information repository, and Corey and some others use that information to build badass weapons. I like the way that Aura becomes a kind of superhuman heroine, and I think that she is also one of the great ideas by Reynolds in this book and series. This is the longest book in the Revelation Space trilogy, and it's the best in my opinion. The sense of scale and scope is huge here. My mind was amongst the stars when I read this, and not only is the author a brilliant astronomer and scientist, he's a brilliant author as well. He has very futuristic and wild but plausible ideas about what the far future could be like, and that sense of vision contributes to the quality of his books. He brings a bit of string theory into this novel. I like the way that the shadow creatures are creatures that live in a brain that runs parallel to our own. Reynolds brings a lot of big cosmological ideas into this book and all of his books, and I find that that is a lot of fun. Reynolds has a good understanding of psychology, brain science, philosophy, societies, relationships, motive, etc. And I like the way that he works some of his ideas about these subjects into his books. I find that he's one step ahead intellectually, of me at least, and I like the fact that he's well-rounded concerning his understanding about life. You know, I really love an author that radiates wisdom and knowledge. Religion is a primary theme here, and I thought that it worked out very well. Quaish is an example of how religious extremism can affect a person. He's obsessed with Haldora and its vanishings, and I thought that Reynolds did a great job with his character. I also liked the concept of the doctrinal viruses that are used as an injection to power a person's faith. All throughout this, the author philosophizes about religion, and I think that he gets his points across well. He elaborates on what he sees as many of the fallacies associated with religious faith. Although I did enjoy Revelation Space and Redemption Arc, I think that Absolution Gap is the more philosophical of the three, and I thought that Reynolds hits a home run concerning getting his thoughts across on the human condition. His wisdom, understanding, and cunning bleed through the pages of Absolution Gap. One of the common criticisms that I've heard concerning this series is a lack of depth with the characters. I personally don't get that line of reasoning. I loved the characters, especially Ilya Volyova, who unfortunately is not in this novel. However, there are plenty of other quality characters. I especially liked the idea of Rashmika, or Aura, who is infused with the knowledge of many different civilizations from all over our local galactic system. Rashmika doesn't really know who she is as the novel begins, but over time, as she pursues her brother Harbin, and as she tries to get to the mystery of the Scuttlers, she slowly begins to remember who she is, and I like the way that everything involving her unfolded. I also love Neville Clavane. Neville dies in this book by being tortured to death by his good friend Scorpio. I thought he died as a true hero, and it was very befitting of him. And I like how we get to know something about Scorpio, another great character, when it comes to the events surrounding Neville's death. It troubled Scorpio to kill his good friend Neville. Neville was actually like a legend. He was someone who was highly respected as a person, and he was someone who worked hard to save the human race from the inhibitors. I thought his story arc was really good in both Redemption Arc and Absolution Gap, and when it comes down to it, he may be the main character of this trilogy. However, friends, we have one more thing to go over. Some have suggested that this novel has a frustrating conclusion, and I get that. Our cast of characters managed to fight off the inhibitors by destroying many of them, but in doing so, they create another problem, the so-called greenfly machines, which are self-replicating terraformers that destroy everything in a system and reform it all into vegetation-filled habitats. You see, the inhibitors had kept the greenfly machines at bay. The inhibitors kept them in check, and without the inhibitors, the greenfly machines are now out of control. So is that even a resolution to the problem, or is it just a continuation of a similar problem? It's not really conclusive, and I was hoping for a firm conclusion, considering that this is the final piece of the trilogy, which is at the core of this series. I do know that the Greenfly threat is gone into further in Galactic North, which is a collection of short stories that I'm reading now. When I finish Galactic North, I'll have a better idea of how all this ends that started in Revelation space, and of course I'll be reviewing that book when I get it finished up, so keep your eye out for that. Perhaps we can really finally get into the conclusion of this series when I finish it up. Well, there you have it, guys. This book was the best of the series for me and the best science fiction book I've ever read. It really is an interesting and engrossing journey that is both similar to and different from the first two installments in the trilogy. Reynolds has become my second favorite author because of this great series of books, and I also like some of his other books that are not Revelation space, such as Century Reign and Pushing Ice. I'll be reading Chasm City in the near future, and once I get both it and Galactic North finished up, I'll review those books, and then I'm gonna do one big episode here on the program where we really get into this thing. I loved this book. I give it a perfect 10 out of 10 rating, and I highly recommend it. Make sure you like and subscribe, guys, if you haven't already. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time.